Subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon to never miss an update from Endeavour Careers. Hello and welcome to Endeavour's GK Capsule for the month of August 2022. In this edition, we will discuss Europe's largest nuclear power station at Zaporizhia becoming a fighting ground for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Pakistan's worst ever floods in a century, commissioning of India's first ever indigenously designed and built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, Ghulam Nabi Azad and Nitish Kumar making news in the political arena, the 5G spectrum auction and the hostile takeover attempt of NDTV by the Adani Group amongst other things. The first category is awards and recognition. Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama was honored with the Dipal Aranjim Dustan Award, the highest civilian honor of Ladakh. The 87-year-old spiritual leader appreciated the gesture and stressed maintaining communal harmony in the region. The award marks the celebration of the remarkable contribution and achievement of the heroes of Ladakh and seeks to instill a sense of pride in the younger generation. Sunil Chhetri and Manisha Kalyan have been named the 2021-22 All India Football Federation Men's Footballer of the Year and the 2021-22 Women's Footballer of the Year respectively. Manisha had won the Women's Emerging Footballer of the Year for last season, while this is the 7th time that Sunil won the award, having last won it in 2018-19. Sunil Chhetri is currently third after Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi in the list of highest goal scorers in international football among active players and sixth on the all-time leaderboard. Our next section is Persons in News. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the chief of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group, was killed last month in a US-led counter-terror operation in Afghanistan, which is said to be one of the biggest blows to the terror outfit ever since the death of Osama bin Laden in 2011. Zawahiri, who just turned 71 years old, had remained a visible international symbol of the group after the death of Osama bin Laden. Former Chief Economic Advisor of India, K. Subramaniam, was recently appointed as the Executive Director of India at the International Monetary Fund. He will replace Surjit S. Bhalla, who was appointed as India's Executive Director on the board of IMF in 2019. K. Subramaniam's tenure in this post will start from 1st November 2022 and will continue for a period of 3 years or till further orders, whichever is earlier. He was the youngest Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, serving from 2018 to 2021. Justice Uday Umesh Lalit was sworn in as the 49th Chief Justice of India last month at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Justice Lalit will have a brief tenure of 74 days as the head of India's judiciary and would demit office on 8th November. He will be the second CJI who was directly elevated to the Supreme Court bench from the bar. Earlier, Justice S.M. Sikri, the 13th CJI, was the first lawyer to be elevated directly to the top court bench in March 1964. He is known to be a part of several high-profile cases, from representing BJP leader and former Uttar Pradesh CM Kalyan Singh, charged with contempt of court for failing to prevent the Babri Masjid demolition, to appearing for actor Salman Khan in his 1998 poaching case. He also headed the bench that sentenced fugitive businessman Vijay Mallya to 4 months imprisonment. Legendary broker investor and one of India's richest men, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala passed away after a cardiac arrest at the age of 62 on 14th August. The billionaire business magnate was suffering from kidney ailments. The veteran trader cum investor known as the Big Bull of Dalal Street was reported to have a net worth of around $5.8 billion. He had recently teamed up with the ex-Jet Airways CEO Vinay Dubey and former Indigo head Aditya Ghosh to launch Akasa Air, which took to the skies a week before his death. Jagdeep Dhankhad, National Democratic Alliance's nominee and former West Bengal governor who was pitted against joint opposition candidate Margaret Alva became the 14th Vice President of India after winning the 16th election by an overwhelming majority. Dhankar, who is a lawyer by profession, joined politics in 1989. He became the governor of West Bengal in July 2019 and has made headlines since then over his tumultuous relations with the Mamata Banerjee government. In a surprising turn of events, Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad resigned from all positions, including primary membership of the party last month. The resignation came a few days after the leader resigned from the position of chairman of the campaign committee and from the political affairs committee of Jammu and Kashmir Congress, hours after his appointment, citing health reasons. The Indian National Congress has lost both the will and the ability under the tutelage of the Kotori that runs the AICC to fight for what is right for India, wrote Azad in his resignation letter to Sonia Gandhi. Azad's resignation follows a series of exits of senior leaders from the party, including Jyotiraditya Scindia, Jaiveer Shergill, Jitin Prasad, amongst others. In other news, Janata Dal chairperson Nitish Kumar submitted his resignation to the Bihar governor Fagu Chauhan after snapping ties with the Bharatiya Janata Party, bringing an end to the coalition government in the state. In the Bihar Assembly election 2020, the RJD had emerged as the single largest party. However, despite being the single largest party, the Mahagathbandhan or the Grand Alliance couldn't form a government as the majority was still with NDA. Moving on to our next section, places in news. Just 2 days before India's 75th Independence Day, the world's highest rail bridge over the Chenab River in the Kauri area of Riyasi district, the much-awaited engineering marvel achieved another milestone when the overarched deck of the bridge was completed with a golden joint. The golden joint shall now pave the way for engineers to lay tracks on the bridge. With tracks over it, Kashmir will be linked with the rest of India via rail network for the first time since independence. The world's largest floating solar power plant is going to be built at Khandwa in Madhya Pradesh with an aim to increase the power generation capacity of the central state of Madhya Pradesh and address the electricity problems in the region. The project will be constructed at an estimated cost of over 3,000 crore rupees over the Omkareshwar Dam, and it will help generate 600 megawatt power by 2022-23. Khandwa will become the only district in the state to have solar, hydel and thermal plants with over 4,000 megawatt power to be produced from a single district. Northeast state, Nagaland, got its second railway station after a gap of more than 119 years with the commissioning of a new facility at Shokhubi. Dimapur railway station in the heart of the commercial hub of the state was inaugurated in 1903. The Donye Polo Express, which runs daily between Guwahati in Assam and Nahar Lagun in Arunachal Pradesh, has now been extended till Shokhubi, a few kilometers from Dimapur. Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh will be directly connected by train service. Moving on to the major highlights in the category of national news. With Prime Minister Narendra Modi commissioning the country's first indigenously designed and built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant in Kochi last month, India became the sixth country in the world capable of building a warship larger than 40,000 tons. Designed by the Indian Navy's in-house Warship Design Bureau and built by Cochin Shipyard Limited, Vikrant has been built with state-of-the-art automation features and is the largest ship ever built in the maritime history of India. The indigenous aircraft carrier is named after her illustrious predecessor, India's first aircraft carrier, which had played a vital role in the 1971 war. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has given the green signal to begin formal negotiations for signing a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with India in what can also boost trade and investments in eastern and northeastern India in a big way. This will be Dhaka's first trade pact with any country, and it has given preference to India despite requests from China and Japan to have free trade agreements. In other news, the Karnataka cabinet recently cleared the way for its aerospace and defense policy 2022-27. The government hopes to attract over 45,000 crore rupee investments and put itself on the global aerospace and defense map. A slew of policies and developments have transformed Karnataka into a preferred location for aviation. Already, 25% of the aircraft and spacecraft industry in the country is in Karnataka, along with two-thirds of all defense aircraft and helicopter manufacturing. The state contributes about 65% to the Indian aerospace and defense sector exports. Karnataka was the first state in the country to come up with an aerospace and defense policy in 2013, and it will be valid up to January 31, 2023. Next, we have major highlights in the category of international news. Europe's largest nuclear power station at Zaporizhia has become a fighting ground for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as both sides blame each other for attacks on and around the complex. Fighting around the facility has sparked fears over the heightened risk of a nuclear disaster. The Zaporizhia nuclear power plant basically controls all the electrical power for much of southern Ukraine and even beyond, which is why the White House has contended that Russia is using its control of the facility to compromise Ukraine's energy supply. Members of the G7's Non-Proliferation Directors Group have urged Russia to immediately withdraw from site. In terms of the war, Russian forces continue to shell military and civilian infrastructure in the eastern Donetsk region, killing several civilians. On the other hand, Ukraine's counter-offensive in the south of the country is gathering pace as its forces again strike bridges leading to the occupied city of Kherson in a bid to choke off supply routes for Russia's forces there. Ukrainian forces have had successes in 3 areas of the Russian-occupied region of Kherson. US President Biden has announced a US military aid package worth approximately $3 billion to mark Ukraine's 31 years of independence from the Soviet Union. The latest arms package, the 19th such installment, is Washington's largest since Russia's full-scale invasion began 6 months ago. A coalition of 26 countries has pledged over 1.5 billion euros to meet the current and future needs of Ukrainians and Russian aggression. The commitment was made at the Copenhagen Conference for Northern European Defense Allies of Ukraine, hosted by Denmark, Ukraine, and the UK. The support will be delivered in the form of cash, equipment, and training. Existing missiles and ammunition will be restocked, weapon production will be increased, and demining activities will be taken up at the war-torn areas of Ukraine as a part of the latest commitment. Russia blocked the adoption of a joint declaration by a United Nations conference on nuclear disarmament last month. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is reviewed by its 191 signatories every 5 years, aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Russia objected to a draft text citing grave concern over military activities around Ukraine's nuclear plants, in particular Zaporizhia. Participants in the last review in 2015 also failed to reach an agreement. The failure to agree to a joint statement after 4 weeks of debate is the latest blow to hopes of maintaining an arms control regime and keeping a lid on a rekindled arms race. In other news, Israel unleashed a wave of airstrikes in Gaza, killing a number of people, including a senior commander of a Palestinian militant group, in the deadliest escalation of violence in the territory since an 11-day war last year. Israel said it was targeting the Islamic Jihad militant group amid days of heightened tensions following the arrest of a senior militant in the occupied West Bank. The strikes risk igniting yet another war in the territory, which is ruled by the Islamic militant group Hamas and is home to about 2 million Palestinians. Washington and Beijing have reached a landmark agreement that would allow US regulators access to audits of Chinese companies that are listed on American exchanges in a deal that would halt the threatened delisting of about 200 stocks that trade on Wall Street. The announcement by US and Chinese regulators is a breakthrough in a long-standing impasse. Beijing has not allowed foreign regulators to inspect Chinese company audits, citing a desire to protect state secrets. The US has said it will force Chinese companies to leave New York stock exchanges if they do not comply with US audit rules. In his much anticipated annual policy speech at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell affirmed that the Fed will use our tools forcefully to attack inflation that is still running near its highest level in more than 40 years. Even with a series of 4 consecutive interest rate increases, totaling 2.25 percentage points, Powell said this is no place to stop or pause, even though benchmark rates are probably around an area considered neither stimulative nor restrictive to growth. The remarks come amid signs that inflation may have peaked but is not showing any marked signs of decline. President Joe Biden signed a $280 billion bipartisan bill to boost domestic high-tech manufacturing, part of his administration's push to boost US competitiveness over China. Flanked by scores of lawmakers, union officials, local politicians, and business leaders, Biden feted the legislation, a core part of his economic agenda that will incentivize investments in the American semiconductor industry in an effort to ease US reliance on overseas supply chains for critical cutting-edge goods. The administration has repeatedly portrayed this legislation as a critical component in countering the influence of a rising China and ensure the US can maintain a competitive edge against Beijing, particularly in semiconductor manufacturing. In other news, Bangladesh has sought a $4.5 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund, joining South Asian neighbors Pakistan and Sri Lanka in seeking help to cope with mounting pressure on their economies. Known for its big garment exporting industry, Bangladesh has sought the funds for its balance of payment and budgetary needs, as well as for efforts to deal with climate change. The country's $416 billion economy has been one of the fastest growing in the world for years, but rising energy and food prices because of the Russia-Ukraine war has inflated its import bill and the current account deficit. With rivers breaking their banks, flash flooding, and glacial lakes bursting, Pakistan is experiencing its worst floods this century, submerging 1/3 of the country underwater. The unprecedented flash floods have ravaged several parts of Pakistan, displacing about 33 million people, killing thousands, and causing damage to the tune of $10 billion. As part of the UN-wide system efforts, UNHCR is supporting the government-led response, providing assistance to the worst flood-hit areas. India has said it is open to sending vegetables and other food items, as well as medicines and essential items to Pakistan on a case-to-case basis, depending on the kind of request that gets communicated from Islamabad to New Delhi. As of now, no official request has been made by Pakistan to India to send food shipments there. The next category is news from the fields of business, economy, and industrial sectors. The Monetary Policy Committee, the rate-setting panel of the Reserve Bank of India, unanimously decided to hike lending rates by 50 bps to 5.40%, above the pre-pandemic level of 5.15%. This is the third consecutive rate hike after a 40 basis points in May and 50 basis points increase in June. In all, the RBI has raised benchmark rate by 1.40% since May this year. The MPC has retained its stance of withdrawal of accommodation as it seeks to roll back pandemic-era measures against rising inflationary pressures. India's biggest ever spectrum auction ended last month. After 7 days of bidding spread across 40 rounds, with spectrum worth 1.5 lakh crore rupees being sold to the country's 3 mobile network operators, Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone India and Adani Group. Reliance Jio emerged as the largest spender in the 5G spectrum auction, acquiring almost half of all the airwaves sold for more than 88,000 crore rupees, and was also the only one to have acquired spectrum in the premium 700 MHz band, which industry analysts say will give it a significant head start over its competitors as far as consumer penetration of 5G is concerned. A total of 51.2 GHz of spectrum was sold of the total 72 GHz that was up for grabs, close to 71%. The Reserve Bank of India instituted a framework to regulate digital lending. Accordingly, all loan disbursals and repayments are to be executed between the bank accounts of the borrower and the entity. This eliminates the presence of a nodal pass-through or pool account of the LSP, which is loan service provider. Lenders must inform the borrower about all the fees, charges, and the annual percentage rate in a standardized format. Charges payable to LSPs in the credit intermediation process will be paid directly by the bank and not the borrower. No automatic increase in credit limit can be made without the explicit consent of the borrower. The RBI has mandated these regulations in order to check mis-selling to customers, unethical business conduct, exorbitant interest rates, and excessive engagement of third parties in digital lending transactions. In other news, Adani Power announced last month that it will acquire DB Power Limited, which owns and operates a running 2 by 600 megawatt thermal power plant at district Janjgir Champa in Chhattisgarh for rupees 7,017 crores. The acquisition is expected to help the company expand its offerings and operations in the thermal power sector in Chhattisgarh. Adani Power has informed the stock exchanges that the acquisition does not fall within related party transactions and the promoter or promoter group has no interest in DB Power. Notably, the proposed transaction is subject to receipt of approval from the Competition Commission of India and any other approvals as may be identified following the due diligence exercise to be conducted with respect to DPPL and DB Power. The Securities and Exchange Board of India has enhanced the rules on disclosures by credit rating agencies and put in place a framework for rating withdrawals of perpetual debt securities. SEBI said in a circular that in order to facilitate withdrawal of perpetual debt security ratings that are listed or are to be listed on the bourses, a credit rating agency may withdraw a rating in case it rated these securities continuously for at least 5 years, or received an undertaking from either the issuer or other agencies that a rating is available for such bonds. According to current regulations for rating withdrawals, ratings of securities like ATI bonds cannot be withdrawn unless the asset is redeemed. This often results in the bond issuer not cooperating with a rating agency. Adani Group on 23rd August announced that its subsidiary AMG Media Network Limited, which is AMNL, has initiated the process to acquire 99.99% in NDTV promoter RRPR Holding Private Limited. Adani Group Corporation purchased a business Vishwa Pradhan Commercial Private Limited, which is VCPL, that had previously been connected to rival tycoon Mukesh Ambani. In the case of NDTV, the promoter, which is RRPR Holding, obtained a loan from VCPL in 2009 for 400 crore rupees to pay off an existing loan, and the Adani Group company has now exercised the option to convert that debt into a 29.18% ownership in the news channel business. The acquisition will trigger an open offer to acquire up to 26% of the news broadcaster NDTV, which owns 3 leading news channels. NDTV has maintained that Adani Group will need approval from India's markets regulator SEBI for its hostile takeover bid, amid wider concerns that the acquisition may muzzle the country's independent press. Moving on to our next category, meetings and summits. The Moscow Conference on International Security 2022 was held from 15th to 17th August 2022. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, in his address at the conference, stressed on bringing comprehensive reform in structure of United Nations. He noted that worrying shortcoming in system of United Nations highlights its structural inadequacy. He expressed that UNSC must be turned into more representative organization for developing countries to provide leadership worldwide. He also highlighted the potential geopolitical fault line in maritime domain, specifically in East Asia. According to him, it could get bigger than what world is witnessing today. Regarding the Indo-Pacific region, he noted that India is committed to free, open, inclusive and secure Indo-Pacific region, being a central country to Indian Ocean. Moving on to our next category, science and technology. The launch of NASA's Artemis Mega Moon rocket has been pushed out more than a month, likely to mid-October, after the second launch attempt was cancelled because of an engine leak. The rocket has been preparing to embark on the first of two test journeys that will pave the way for a crewed moon landing as early as 2025, marking humanity's first trip back to the moon since 1972 and signaling NASA's intent to establish a long-term presence there. Moving on to our next category of sports, the Commonwealth Games 2022 concluded last month with India ending their medal tally at 61, which includes 22 gold, 16 silver and 23 bronze. India finished at the 4th position in the medal tally. This is one of the best performances of India in the Commonwealth Games. Disney Star has won the rights to broadcast all ICC events for the Indian market from 2024 to 27 for approximately $3 billion. Disney Star will be home of all ICC cricket in India for the next 4 years, having won the TV and digital rights of both men's and women's global events till the end of 2027. It rained medals for India following its best ever chess Olympiad campaign organized by the Federation Internationale d'Hs, held in Chennai last month. Though a bronze medal in each section, open and women, was a first, India claimed the Geprind Shavili Cup, a symbol of the combined supremacy of a team in both sections. The hosts' share was a never-before haul of 2 gold medals, a silver and 4 bronze medals on the back of some sterling individual performances. Olympic champion javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra scripted history as he became the first Indian to clinch a Diamond League meeting title by winning the Lausanne leg. 24-year-old Chopra hurled the spear to 89.08 meters in his first attempt to seal the win in style. The 89.08 meters throw was his third career best effort. His second throw measured 85.18 meters before passing on to his third attempt. With this, we have come to this month's edition of GK Capsule. We hope you like the coverage of topics in our monthly edition. Do also watch our other online videos. Happy learning. Thank you.